I need to change my thinking. I need to change the things that I'm doing, how I'm acting, what's controlling me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of One of a Kind You. Today, we are in for a special treat. We have Dr. Kelly Barron with us, and she is a fellow podcaster. She has a show called The Kelfire Show, and really, she is on a mission to shatter taboos, defy stereotypes, and empower women on their menopause journey. And I hate to say that I'm closer to that menopause journey than I'd like to admit. So when she and I connected about having her on the podcast, I was like, yes, absolutely, come on. I would love to have you as a guest. So Kelly, I know I just gave like this super brief introduction of about who you are. So please tell us more.
Well, thank you, Kim, for having me on today so we could talk. It's very exciting. And I'm one of those people that became a jack of all trades, master of none. And I'm okay with that. I'm very okay with that. But where I came about is I experienced an assault in my very early 20s, which sort of changed who I am and how my life has rolled out, if you will. I am a chiropractor by trade. I'm a chiropractor, and I worked very closely with women's health. Started out in pregnancy and prenatal and the childbearing years, and have now found myself working with women that are perimenopause and menopause, and becoming, aware, comfortable options. It's menopause has just become, it's a big topic now, and perimenopause, but we've come a long way. And I don't know about you, but my mother certainly never talked to me about menopause or perimenopause or the changes that my body would go through.
Yes.
So because of,
Not either, but I would say my mom's menopause journey is not typical to other women because she had a hysterectomy in her early 40s. So,
yeah.
yeah, so I don't even know what my mom's menopause journey looks like with what that would look like with a hysterectomy. I just know that I'm pushing passing the early 40s stage of life. So I know it's like going to be knocking on my door very soon. So
Well, I think well, you just brought up a really good point. There are so many women that I don't think there is a typical menopause journey. I have talked to women who've had hysterectomies at age 30 who their doctors didn't tell them, well, full hysterectomy. Once you've had a hysterectomy, you are immediately thrown into menopause, but essentially your hormones have changed. You no longer are childbearing. So now your body says, okay, that biological process that you were essentially came into this world for and what you're supposed to be doing is done. So your mom, yeah, she probably got hit with menopause instead of a very slow, gradual perimenopause. The little things that happen. We're getting a little more forgetful, a little more brain fog occasionally, sleep gets disturbed. She probably got it all at once. And
probably.
it would be very curious to get her side of how she went through that. But I think that's the big conversation to be had is there is no such thing as a one size fits all perimenopause, menopause journey. And each woman's approach to it is different. What I try to bring to the table is this this sense that you don't menopause and perimenopause and your body don't control you. You need to control them. You need to create a positive experience out of something that is generally thought of as negative.
Mhm.
It's not fun to be going through this, and as you're starting to see it's not fun to have your hormones play tricks, imagine PMS all the time, or your body changing shape because your hormones are changing. You don't understand, why am I getting a little belly? I've always had a flat belly. I've always done this and that. So it can be very frustrating. But my approach came about through the assault that I went through, because most survivors of any type of assault, mine was a physical assault, will you immediately and naturally fall into a victim mode.
Yes.
You and you just you're a victim, and you could get so lost and consumed by your victimhood. It's not a bad thing. I'm not saying I did the exact same thing. You become ruled, your thoughts, physiologically, your body just cannot break yourself out of that place. I spent 10 years sort of spiraling in that place. I couldn't be in the house alone at night. I had 3 young children. I didn't feel comfortable protecting them, let alone protecting myself. I became very timid. I second guessed every action I made. And I felt like something somewhere was controlling my life, and it wasn't me. And because of that, my husband had said, I need you to be able to protect yourself. This needs to end. And he wasn't saying it in an angry or abrupt way. He just said, we need to get you out of this. So he had someone come to the house and teach me self-defense once a week. And once I started to allow myself to be empowered and to know that it was okay, and I'm allowed to have been through this horrible experience and find a positive out of it. I felt ashamed for trying to find a positive out of it. I felt like, no, it needs to live in the negative. But I started to realize I need to change my thinking. I need to change the things that I'm doing, how I'm acting, what's controlling me. So I started self-defense, and I took self-defense classes that kind of led into jujitsu and MMA for probably a year. And that's when things really changed. And I said, I have to put myself back into that situation. It was the only way I knew how to deal with it. Go back into that situation, which led me to my first amateur MMA fight at age 38. Nobody does that. Nobody.
For badass, by the way.
No, thank you.
No way I would get into a ring and do an MMA fight.
Let
Never.
me tell you, it's not easy because the training is easy. It's hard. At the time, I was in Colorado. MMA for women was still, still burgeoning. It was not huge.
Yeah.
So I found myself in a gym with 19 to 25-year-old males, and those were my only sparring partners, training partners. That in itself is rough, but the training was okay. But I said, okay, I need to get into a fight. That, as crazy as a statement that is, I need an MMA fight. I need to go in and prove that I can defend myself. And yes, I understand it. I went in against a female, but the concept of overcoming that fear, I needed to experience. But getting in that ring, I was ready to go. I had the walkout song, the outfit. I had a couple of local sponsors. I was like, this is going to be great. And I get in the ring, and they shut the door, and I look across at my opponent, who literally, I'm 38. She's probably 20. She could have been my daughter. And I just look across, and I was like, this is not a good idea. I should
Yeah.
probably just go. I'm going to go and get a glass of wine, and I'll just, but
Like,
I
I changed my mind. Can you open the door and let me out now, please?
I literally did. I stood there like, what's wrong with you? And but fight went on, and I had 4 fights after that. And then I went on to compete in jujitsu because my face was just scarred up. I had so many scars and things like that. Going to the ER with your 3 young children is never a good look, ever a good
Yeah.
look. I had to defend my poor husband all the time. It's not him. It's not him. It was this 19-year-old sparring partner. It's okay. Um, but from that experience changed everything. And I started to feel very empowered and in control. Putting myself in a place that I don't know that I ever really felt good about being in an MMA fight, but I felt good that I had pushed my boundaries and put myself in a position to know that I am capable, and really rewired my brain, started to rewrite the script of what had happened to me. And from there, I went into powerlifting, and decided, okay, I need a new challenge. I realized I was going to have to consistently put myself in these positions in order to create this positive life for myself. And if I didn't, I was afraid I'd fall back and not embrace this new person that I was working on. So powerlifting became a thing, and I started to train for that. And happy to say that I worked hard enough to be a world record holder.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's scary too, because it's the same thing. I'm in there as a master's, for my age group and weight class. I'm 54 and I'm in there, and 90% of the other females are 30 and under, 25 and under, and you get on the platform and now you're this woman going through, you know, perimenopause and all the things, and you're like, my back hurts, and oh, I hope I don't pee when I deadlift on the platform. Oh, I did. There we go. And you're in awe, and it's the same thing as the cage door shutting. You're like, you go out onto this platform with lights and a crowd, and you're like, why am I here? And that
Yes.
same fight or flight thing hits you, and you have to just self-talk and say, you got to do this. So I went on to do that, and then I'm still competing in powerlifting. And then that's when Tempesto, which is the company that I formed, it's a virtual company for menopause and perimenopause. We have a telehealth side to it. We have alternative healthcare side to it, but I really wanted to do it because I wanted to take what I learned and apply that to women's health and women's mindset and say, there's always a moment in your life where you can change everything no matter what has happened. It's up to you to control it. And that's kind of what happened. I learned that I could start controlling my own narrative, as scary as it was.
Mhm.
And the podcast, I hated public speaking. I literally in college would just sweat when it was my turn to go speak, and I'd mess it up. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna do a podcast because I want women to tell their stories. I'm deathly afraid to get on there and talk. The first episode I did, I couldn't even get the opening intro out. I just laughed and sweat, and it was a mess. But I said, all right, this is a new way to get out there and put yourself out there. So that's kind of it. Oh, American Ninja Warrior. I tried out for American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah.
Did not go so well, but I did it because I wanted to. I got on the show. I think I'm a blooper reel, probably a blooper reel, because I made it like just through the first steps.
That's okay. Not many people can even say that they got that far to even try out for it. So a blooper reel is still a win.
It's still a win. I mean, it again flows with the just trying to control things and trying to get myself in these uncomfortable positions and saying you can do it, you're strong enough. And I want women to look at menopause and perimenopause the same way, that don't let it control you. You can control it, control your experiences, talk to other women, get a coach, get a therapist, like work this out. This is not something that you have to accept. This is something that you can own and control.
Yeah, I think, menopause has such a stigma behind it that like when a woman hits menopause, it's kind of like, oh, life is over sort of feeling. So I'm trying now to change my narrative around it because I know I'm not far from it. I'm gonna be 40, gosh, I'll be 43 this summer. And so I know it's closer than I'd like to admit. And I had to think about how old I was going to be for a minute. So that's a funny thing. But I was like, wait, 42 or 43? No, 43. But I have like my aunts and they're like, oh, the hot flashes, and I'm always cold. So I'm trying to be like, oh, I would love a hot flash because then I won't be freezing all the time. So like I'm
Exactly.
really trying to embrace that it's not a bad thing and that it doesn't mean that like life is over or that I'm old. It's just a different stage of life. And then there are things to be done and had in that stage.
There's always been the hierarchy, if you will, of women's phases of life. So you have the child or puberty, if you will. So leading up to childbearing, that's one phase of a female's life. And you're growing, you're going through puberty. That's a phase we've all, that teenage phase is crazy, but you go through that, then you hit childbearing. And then obviously childbearing, if you choose to have children or not, your body is in a childbearing mode. And that's a whole other different stage of a female's life and mindset. And then we used to then immediately go into what's called the crone stage, which is basically grandma stage. So you you've been through your youth, you've had your children or been through that phase, your job, this and that. And now you're at this phase of life where you're going to be, the greatest aunt on the world, in the planet, or grandma, and you're taking care of other children. Well, our life expectancy has lengthened and by dramatically. And also we're having children later in life. Those children are not having children right away. So there's this new stage called the wild woman, and it literally is the best definition to give to the perimenopause phase, because we're now in an area where our children are gone empty nesting, or you're kind of winding down your career a little bit, and you are no longer responsible for a lot of the things you used to be responsible for. So now you don't have to care for children. You're in this area now where you can spend time on yourself that we never did. And you
Mhm.
don't have grandkids, they're not on the horizon either. So this is a phase that women should own. And it goes the same with perimenopause. Now's the time I just did an episode with my son, who's a fashion designer. He's a clothing designer in New York City. And I brought him on because I wanted to talk about, okay, well, we get to this age and we sort of fall apart fashion wise, all
Yes.
things. We start to conform to what we're supposed to look like at this age, and that's absolutely false. I mean, we have another 40 years to live, 50
Right.
years, knock on wood. Why are we not wearing that little black dress and the black stilettos, or doing our hair and makeup and going out enjoying this time, spending time on self-care? So I think that goes hand in hand with perimenopause. While we're getting hit with this storm of crap, for lack of better terms, we should be embracing that and saying, okay, I got to work with this, and do the hair, do the makeup, do the self-care, get the massage, and enjoy this time of life versus dreading it.
Yeah. And I think too, what you said about like, embracing the ability to be able to do more self-care or to go experience things that you wouldn't have experienced when you were in a previous stage of life is also super important. And I'm gearing up for that too, because my girls are 15 and 12. And so which makes me sad because I'm like, I only have, 3 years left, and then Lily will be off to college, and then Casey will be off to college shortly after that. Um, but I've had this realization that I want to set myself up now to be able to have flexibility and time and things like that. So if I want to go do a girls trip, I can go. Or if I want to do a weekend away with my husband, we can go. And so, because I don't want to get to the next phase of life and feel like the coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Oh, exactly. Like I think that that's excellent. You should probably write a book on that. I think that that's awesome. Like
I don't
setting
know that I have that much wisdom yet, Kelly. I don't have that much wisdom yet.
But setting yourself, that's a really great concept of setting yourself up for this coming stage of life. And it's absolutely right, because most of us, we get to that stage of life and it's deer in the headlights, and I'm going to tell you now, you're going to be highly emotional when the girls go off. Um, and then there's going to be the
I'm just
great.
thinking about it now, and we're not even
Exactly. It gets
like,
worse. It gets worse. And then you get hit with this void of, what is my purpose?
yeah.
What am I supposed to be doing? And you should set that, you should get ready for this time and know, yes, I want to do girls trips, and I want to go away with my husband, and I want to do a weekly, let's go out to dinner, make it like a standing event, all these things. I want to do a club, a new exercise, things like that, and actually like get excited for it. That would be such a great help of getting through this stage of life. Like, think about when you're raising the girls, or you're just coming up in life and money's tight and you're building this family. Well, now go ahead and spend that crazy money on that face serum. Like, just do it because you owe it to yourself.
Yeah. And so I would say right now that I'm just mentally wrapping my brain around, like what the next stage of life could look like. That's about as far as I've gotten in the preparation. But I'm like, if that's the first step. Awareness is key, right?
You're light years ahead of most of us. Like my Gen X, and you're right on the Gen X, but I'm 54. So this group that's gone through that we're going through right now, we didn't plan. We should have planned. We really should have planned, at least had an idea.
Yeah, well, I think times were different because I would say, like, 20 years ago, you didn't have social media was like just becoming a thing. So there wasn't this open dialogue. There wasn't this like narrative that we have now. And I know when my girls are at my stage of life, they're going to be light years ahead of where even I
Yeah.
am, because the work that like you're doing for the next generation and the work that I do for the generation after that is different than the work that like my mom did for us, or like my aunts or my grandmother or my great grandmother. Like they were just sort of laying the foundation, like in the 20s, for what, womanhood could look like. But the real leaps and bounds haven't happened until just recently, in terms of us like really taking a stand, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I did, and I'm going on my second year now, but I'll tell you, I was getting towards this. The kids are all gone. My youngest is in his junior year of college, so he's been gone. And I have three boys, which probably explains the MMA. I don't know, but one of the things I did was I thought, okay, I'm in this stage right now. I'm feeling my hormones going a little crazy. I don't want to wear the velour tracksuit from Costco all the time. Like I don't want, that's not what I want my life to look like. And I thought I feel like I need to tap into the feminine energy side and really start owning and feeling sexy at this age. So there was a pole fitness studio. So they teach pole and exotic dance, but it's all very getting in tune with your feminine side. And I looked it up and I thought, oh, Kelly, you're like, this is ridiculous. You're 52. You can't do this. You don't even know how to walk in heels. I never wore heels before. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go in and I'm going to try it. And I was again scared and frightened to do it. And I went in and I'm staring around a room, 40 to 50-year-old women, all at the same objective. Like, we just kind of want to capture what we had in our 20s. And I've watched women blossom, including myself, tap it like, and they're changing their whole narrative again in this stage of life. And it's things like that. It could be Pilates, it could be, you know, painting, sip and paint classes, whatever it is that sort of sets the tone for this new phase of you. Go for it. Don't worry about what anyone's thinking. Never worry about what anyone's thinking, because the only person ultimately you have to answer to is yourself.
Yes. And I have to tell you, um, I have been looking into pole classes too, because that was so fun. Like in my early 20s, going out to the club and like dancing on the poles. I didn't really like the other girls getting up there with me. So I was like, you have to wait until I'm done.
Yes, like it's my fabulous time right now.
My time, ladies. I'm not done yet dancing on this pole, so you have to wait your turn. But that is like, so a couple of my girlfriends and I have been talking about going to take a pole dancing class. And there aren't really a lot around my area, but I did find one. So that's on our list of like our bucket list of things to do. And we know that we're going to look completely foolish, but we're okay with that because it's just so much fun.
No, you absolutely have to do it. It really like, especially if you have good instructors. Our instructors are like 25, but that's okay because
Yes.
they don't care. But just like moving your body, and we videotape at the end of every class as we learn choreography. And I'm going to tell you, I look at that and I go, what am I doing? I'm like falling. I'm doing, and so all the other girls are too. But it's amazing. Like it's a really good workout, but it taps into that. You start tapping into that energy and you get that back. And again, you create more confidence. So if you do go out, let's say with your husband or the girls, you might get back on the dance floor. Or you might just slink a little bit through the room versus marching through because you just feel like you've tapped into that side of you again and you're unapologetic about it. I've watched women that started with me. We all came in our tank top sports bras and our, workout shorts. And we're like, okay, we're going to do this. Everybody now is in, pole outfits and thongs and tiny sports bras. And they're just, bellies are hanging out, or faded tattoos. We're tired from work, but it really changes things. Like putting yourself in those situations and embracing things and not being scared, not caring. Like definitely go do it though.
Oh yes, it's definitely going to happen. Um, but it's the whole theme of your life, it seems like you just constantly put yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable. And how do you, first of all, how did you embrace that? Because that's a really hard thing for people to embrace, is being uncomfortable, because um when the it hits the fan, we either want to know that we matter, or we want that certainty, that safety, and that comfort. So how did you get to the place where you're like, okay, I just have to rip this band-aid off and I have to make myself uncomfortable? Was it a place of like you just got sick and tired of being sick and tired, or was there something else to it?
I got to the place where I thought, if I don't do this, if I don't push the boundaries of where I'm comfortable, I'm going to stay in this same rut, and I'm never going to get out. And I just felt like, what is my life like? What is the purpose of me living this life if I'm not going to be fully happy and I'm just going to sit here? And if I don't push myself to do it, I'm never going to do it. I'm definitely one of those people that I'll get to the 5 yard line and I'll stare at it, and I'll stare at it, and I'll be really nervous to run it in for a touchdown. And that's ridiculous. You can't succeed in life unless you're prepared to fail and unless you fail. So I started to see, like, I can fail a million times and succeed once. I just need to do it. And I realized that would help with, the feelings of no control and the feelings of victimhood if I do these things. And whether I succeed or not, I won just by doing it.
Yeah, I love that. Um, and so when people are sort of not quite at that point yet, and they're like, wow, Kelly, that sounds really great, and I would love to be able to do that too, but like I could never. um how can they get started with pushing themselves to get to the point of being willing to be uncomfortable?
Well, I think in all things in life, just changing small behaviors versus just looking at, like, this is what I want to do, small behaviors. And my motto is get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to. It's scary, but start with very tiny things that you're a little nervous to do or you're a little afraid. Pick one little thing. It could be, you know, eyelash extensions because you're afraid that someone's going to call you out for it. It could be taking a pole class, something very small, pushing yourself into that, saying, all right, we're going to do this. Because always 9 times out of 10, when you put yourself in those positions, when it's done, you're like, oh, I'm glad I did that. Even if you start it going, I don't want to do this, you're like, I'm glad I did this. And if you just keep layering in smaller things, eventually they become bigger things. And getting comfortable being uncomfortable really doesn't have to mean getting into an MMA fight or, trying to go break world records. It's literally overcoming the small things that are holding you back and are, enhancing your life. So that is where I would start with something you can do. That you can win at. It's easy. You're just a little hesitant. Conquer that one first, then increase the uncomfortableness, if you will, of the next. And you'll get there.
Yeah, I think that's such a great way to approach it, because I think oftentimes when we set out with this idea or this goal, we automatically think about the 10 steps ahead of where we currently are and feeling like we have to be there at that point as the starting point, and we forget that there's 10 steps before that place, and you have to start back at step 1 and not at step 10.
Oh, yeah. And then within that, that end goal seems so overwhelming that you then also find 10 excuses of why you're going to fail. So why bother? So you get frustrated with not getting to where you want to be in a certain time frame. You find it overwhelming, and then you find all the reasons why it was a dumb idea anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, no. Absolutely. You should just baby steps, conquer little things, and eventually you will get on a roll where you're like, I'm going to do this, or you become very comfortable failing or not reaching your goal and finding ways to pivot off of that. Okay, that's not going to work out. I'm not going to get there, but I'm going to go do this. Like I want to climb a 14er, but you know what? I'm not good at 14,000 feet above sea level. It's very taxing, the training, so I'm going to start with an 8,000, and that's my new goal. And then
Yeah.
you can be satisfied at that goal, or you could then say, okay, now I'm going to try 10.
Yes. And I think oftentimes when we do hit that goal, so we set out sometimes we're like, oh, I'm good with 8,000. I don't need to do the 14,000. And then we get to the 8,000. We're like, oh, actually, I think I do want that
Oh,
14,000,
absolutely.
because then it's like, well, why stop now? Like I did this thing. Wow, I'm amazing. I did this. So now I want to keep going. So I feel like when you hit those small markers, those small indicators, it gives you the strength to keep going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And I also think an important thing we didn't talk about, but it's okay. Women were nurturers. We put everybody else first. We don't even rarely do want to take credit for anything. But when you do reach these little milestones or get comfortable being uncomfortable in certain situations, absolutely find a way to celebrate yourself. It can be very small. You could add lemon to your water if that's what's going to do it for you for that day. But absolutely never be, and that's the thing, we're so ashamed to celebrate. And I'm not saying you need to go out and get skywriting to say, like, look what I did. I mean, you could, why not?
Why not?
Why not? But you need to celebrate those little victories and be proud of yourself. The more you do that, the more confident you are, the happier your life is, and the more you're going to do things. But never be ashamed or, oh, that one, so and so on Facebook is going to see me put this post up, and then I'm going to get bad comments. Well, bad comments is still comments. Somebody's watching you, and that's okay.
Yes. And I think too, we often don't celebrate ourselves because we've not been told that that's okay. We've been told, oh, that's bragging, or you're going to make someone feel badly about themselves for not also accomplishing that.
Exactly.
But I think if we flip the narrative on that too, I think that's another way of being uncomfortable is to actually celebrate yourself publicly. I think
Absolutely.
that also gives other women the permission that they might not be able to give themselves to A, push themselves to do things that make them uncomfortable, but also B, to celebrate themselves as well.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. I'm telling you, the book's coming. You got to write the book.
Okay. So I think now Kelly and I are going to have a weekly Zoom call and she's going to coach me on writing a book.
Yeah, I'm going to get Kim comfortable being uncomfortable with writing the book.
Oh, that's so funny. So well, first of all, I just have to say, you're for anyone who watches the video of this, Kelly has the most beautiful tattoo on her arm.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, that was part of the midlife crisis, if you will. It was more like, I'm going to do it and I don't care.
yes, and I love it. And so I also have tattoos, but I have like the tramp stamp for my early
I have one
20s.
of those. I
Yeah.
have a stamp sample.
Yep. And sometimes I forget I have it because it's been there for so long. And then a couple years ago, I got a tattoo on my inner wrist. It's a little, you can't see it with much, but it's a skeleton key because I love all things old.
Oh, I love that
So,
actually.
and the cliche meaning is that I hold the key to my own future. Like I don't need to rely on other people to give me like the key to unlock the doors for myself. But then I just got one on my side at the end of December, and that one hurt so
I
bad.
was going to ask you, how bad was that?
That was the worst. I was like, oh, it's gonna be fine. The one on my wrist didn't hurt. The one on my back hurt, but like, it was kind of like childbearing pain. You forget kind of.
Right.
And this one I was like, okay, I've just got to bear down and do it because I can't walk around with lines on my side. That's gonna look silly. Like we gotta just finish it. That hurt. Did yours
Yeah.
hurt?
It did, but part of the whole getting comfortable being uncomfortable and controlling things, I had nat home births because I
Oh,
wanted to, it was more of like, I had, because I was a chiropractor, I had philosophies about it, but I also wanted to like say, I can do this.
yeah,
I mean, I really regretted that as I was actually pushing the baby out, but so I tried to channel that sort of when they were doing the tattoo because it hurt when they go back
yeah.
over with the black. But I kind of was like, go to your happy place, go to your happy place. And I didn't know where that happy place was during pain, but I just sort of tried to just go there.
Try to find some place that made you
Something,
happy.
anything.
Anything, yes, yes. So I just like I love tattoos, so I think your tattoo is gorgeous.
Thank you.
And again, it's like, even just a small tattoo can be the way that you push yourself to be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. It's some if it's something that you've wanted to do, and you're scared, or you get a tiny tattoo hidden. I have one in the back of my neck. Nobody can see it. So
Yeah.
do you do something like that too? And that's the perfect example.
Yes. And I think there's still like, even though in this day and age, there's still stigma around tattoos. So like my girls are like, you can't get any more tattoos. They're like, you're gonna look like you're trying too hard. I'm like, oh girls.
Oh,
Oh girl,
girl, no, no, you
no,
have no
not even
idea.
close. I'm getting more, just so you know. And they're like,
Yes.
oh my God, it's so embarrassing. I was like,
I'm
oh,
just getting started, ladies.
right. I'm like, keep it up, girls, and I'll wear those booty ruching leggings to the mall with you. And they're like, oh
Yes.
my God, no.
And as you should.
Right, right. So, oh my gosh. So no, this has been such an amazing conversation. And I have to say that you're just like, your badassness is just such an inspiration. And I hope that other women will feel called to follow that action of just embracing it and going for it, even if you fall flat on your ass sometimes. But
Mhm.
to just be able to like pick yourself back up and keep on going.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Every woman has an inner badass, just has
Yes.
to let it out.
Yes. And with that doesn't mean that it has to like the badass flag doesn't have to fly all the time. But
Yeah.
it definitely has to come out sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Kelly, for taking the time to come on One of a Kind You and chat with us and share your story. And it's been just such a blast.
And thank you, Kim, for letting me come on and be a part of your listeners and your show. My cheeks hurt from laughing. So maybe Botox is not in the future for the next 4 months because you've just given it to me. But
Well,
thank
good.
you
I'm glad.
again. It was so much fun.
Yes. Thank you. And thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.